and welcome to the festive edition of the Dementia Researcher podcast. Today we bring together some of our regular bloggers to hear about their years, their fields, and what they have planned for 2025. Unscripted and with some unexpected questions, so who knows what will happen. Hello, I'm Adam Smith, and it's a delight to be hosting this podcast. Did you like that?
Oh dear.
This is our third year of this kind of show, and it's now becoming a firm tradition in our schedule. And joining me today, we have Dr. Jodie Watt, Dr. Sam Moxon, Dr. Anna Volkmer, Dr. Cleona Farrell, Dr. Connor Richardson, and me. And you'll recognise those because, as I said, they're all our regular bloggers. And they're going to talk to us today about their year that's just gone by, what's been happening for them, what's happening in their field, and then we're going to talk a little bit about next year, and we're going to have some festive questions as well. But let's start with some introductions. For those that don't know, our blogs are published. We publish about 3 blogs every week, 2 to 3 blogs every week, and our bloggers talk about everything from research topics to their lives, their careers, and everything in between. And all those blogs also have their own podcast. If you're not already subscribed to that, go look for Dementia Researcher, the blogs, because it has its own podcast stream where you can hear our wonderful bloggers narrate their blogs. And I prefer listening much rather than reading, so do go check those out. But in the meantime, let's do some introductions for those that don't know them. And I'm going to start with Jodie. Introduce yourself, Jodie.
So, as Adam said, I'm Dr. Jodie Watt. I work as a postdoc at the University of Glasgow. I currently work on drug repurposing for dementia, and for dementia researcher, I tend to focus on NIHR.
Thank you, Jodie. Let's come on to Sam next.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sam. I'm also a regular blogger. So I tend to blog about a bit about research, a bit about research, travel research tips, but also about food and diet and the impact on health. So we've also got a podcast series called Food for Thought, where we talk about the implications of food and diet on dementia. And you sort of catch me in between roles now. So I've been a research fellow for about 8 years now, but now I'm transitioning into running a spin-out company that should come out of the university. So talk about a bit about that later on as well. So a few exciting updates for later on.
And you came on the webinar to talk. We did a webinar to talk about that as well, and you've written some blogs for us about that. We might talk about food later, but I know are you a vegan now?
Yeah, I've been for 2.5 years.
What does a vegan Christmas dinner look like?
It's basically the same. It's just rather than turkey, you have like a vegan alternative. But you still have all the roast potatoes, the stuffing, the carrots, the turnips, the parsnips, the sprouts, all the usual stuff. The difficult thing is usually dessert, finding a dessert. So we tend to either have Christmas pudding, which is usually good, or we make something.
It looks like Jodie's got a suggestion.
I am also vegan, not to be that guy, but I have the greatest Yule log recipe going.
Ooh, I'd like that.
A hit with everyone, so can circulate that if you're after.
Yeah. My mum makes the mince pies for us vegan. So my great uncle was born in Vienna, and we have this amazing recipe for Viennese mince pies with Viennese pastry. So she's made those vegan. So we have those as well, which are really good. But yeah, it's much the same. It's just the dessert that can sometimes be a bit tricky. So I might chase you for that Yule log recipe.
Sure.
Now I've said that, it's obvious because like 90% of the Christmas dinner is vegetables, right? Yeah. What about Yorkshire pudding? Where do you stand on Yorkshire puddings?
It doesn't go on a Christmas dinner, and I'm a Yorkshireman, so I can bow on that.
Talking? And we need a show of hands here. Well, if you're listening, that won't work. You have to watch the video version. Anna, where Yorkshire puddings?
Oh yes.
Yeah, Connor.
Very yes.
Yeah, Cleona.
I'm Irish, so Yorkshire puddings are actually quite new to me since I moved here. But I'm the third vegan on the call, and I've found some really nice roasts in London that have vegan Yorkshire puddings on them. So I'm a convert, I would say.
Jodie?
My partner is from Yorkshire, and he is very team Yorkshire pudding generally.
Yorkshire pudding.
Ooh, controversial.
And Yorkshire pudding in that little boat. My grandma, I don't know if this is just a thing from my family or a Yorkshire thing, but you used to get served your Yorkshire pudding as a starter. It used to come, it was like a big, really big square one that was cooked in its own pan and would get dished up as before you then have your meat and your vegetables.
Yeah, I think it's...
This debate almost destroyed a family Christmas a few years ago.
Come on, we need to know that story, Connor.
One year my mum was hosting Christmas dinner, and for like the past 10 years I've cooked Christmas dinner, but she had a new partner and she was trying to show off. And me and my sister were getting very concerned that there was no Yorkshire pudding preparation going on. And we were like, what's the crack? Where are the Yorkshire pudding? And then all of a sudden, after like 30 years of knowing this woman who I thought to be my mother, was like, you don't have Yorkshire puddings on a Christmas dinner. And I was like, I think you'll find we do. So yeah, me and my sister sort of almost had a massive fight with my mum on Christmas Day because we were like, who is this woman? Why are you being this way? We demand Yorkshire puddings now.
It's this man that has changed you. It's all this partner's fault. And they have to be made, right? You can't go buying any frozen business. Anna buys frozen.
No, I never buy frozen. No, they don't taste right.
Well, I'm glad we've set the Yorkshire pudding debate to hand, right? But Anna, let's do your introduction now.
Well, so hello, I'm Dr. Anna Volkmer. I'm a speech and language therapist and a researcher at UCL. I mostly I've blogged for Dementia Researcher for some time, not so much recently, but most of my blogs are about speech, language and communication, which is contextual for people in relation to people with dementia. But I've also been blogged a lot about, I guess, lots of things like juggling life. And this year, one of my blogs got picked up and I got a mention in a Guardian, a magazine article,
Really?
as a result of this. Have I told you that, Adam?
Just tell me, which blog was it?
It was blogging about being a parent and being a researcher. And I got an approach by a journalist who said, I found your blog about being a parent and a researcher on NIHR Dementia Researcher. And then she asked me several comments about how I manage my life. And then she quoted me in a Guardian article. I can send you a photo of it. And it's basically with lots of other busy women and how being a mum. And I think I got quoted as saying something to the effect of, when I'm writing, I just don't check my emails or phone messages just so I can get on with writing. I deprioritize. That was essentially my massive moment.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Do you know, funnily enough, because, of course, not with us this evening, but our regular listeners will know that Emily Spencer, also a PhD student at UCL, has been writing for us during pregnancy and then during maternity leave and now returning back for work. And I know she won an award as well for her blogs on the same topic.
Wow.
UCL award for her blogs on that same thing.
That's pretty cool.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Anna. And you've written lots. I mean, every time I refer back, all about kind of how to navigate NIHR funding and things like that, it's always your blogs that come up because you've written right through from being a PhD student to now supervising your own students and everything else. So you've got a wealth of blogs. In fact, I think you might have nearly 50 blogs on our website over the 5 years you've been writing for us. Thank you very much, Anna. Cleona's been writing for us for, is that nearly 6 months now?
Yeah, maybe half a year or so. So yeah, my name's Cleona Farrell. I'm a recent PhD graduate from UCL, where I am now doing a postdoctoral fellowship as well. And I've been blogging, as Adam said, for about half a year so far because I was kind of coming to the end of my PhD as I started blogging. I really focused on, writing advice and how to kind of get a PhD as well. My work is focused on Alzheimer's disease in people who have Down syndrome, but from a more preclinical research perspective. So I work with a lot of human postmortem brain tissue and study proteomics and transcriptomics in that system.
It's very cool. I submitted a journal article yesterday. When I was looking through the list of special editions, Down syndrome and dementia was one of their current special issues for Alzheimer's and dementia.
The Alzheimer's and Dementia Journal, they had a call out at the moment. I actually got asked to review an article for them.
We didn't submit for that, but I did spot that, in case you hadn't heard. Thank you, Cleona. And last but not least, our very own Connor. Hello, Connor.
Hi there.
Would you mind, for those who are watching the video podcast version, would you mind popping your nose on for us just to give it the full effect? So I should describe, for those that are listening, of course, you can head over to YouTube where we have a video version of this podcast. And to describe my wonderful guests, Anna and Cleona are both wearing wonderfully festive jumpers. Sam is in front of the twinkliest Christmas tree I've ever seen. And myself and Jodie have the traditional red and white Santa hat. And Connor is dressed as Rudolph.
I am.
Or are you Rudolph? Or are you Dancer, Prancer, Donner, Blitzen?
Well, I'm meant to be Rudolph, but as you can see, my Poundland Rudolph nose does not want to play ball. It's meant to light up.
It looks good. I like the little ears.
I like the little ears.
The antlers.
I love the little ears.
I think you could chop off. You could actually take away the antlers and just wear that with the little ears.
The antlers are actually really tall, and they keep knocking against that light, which is above my dining room table. So I'm trying to be very careful not to cause collateral damage in my house.
I should let you introduce yourself, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I'm Connor. I'm an epidemiologist at Newcastle University. I've been writing for the Dementia Researcher blogs for about 2 years. On everything from kind of epidemiology, data science, to a lot of kind of research culture, research careers, and anything that piques my interest at any given time. And yeah, my research is mainly focused on population studies, dementia prevention, and risk reduction.
My favourite blog that you wrote this year was the one where you basically wrote that you did two that were matched up. One where you did lots and lots of focused effort to get a promotion, and then the next one you didn't get that promotion, sadly.
I did not.
And then you applied a little while later, but didn't decide to apply until about 10 minutes before the deadline and threw something together in 10 minutes. Got promoted.
I mean,
Which just gives the worst impression that basically don't prepare for anything. Just everything should be done with about 10 minutes notice.
I am cautious now not to give that message because I kind of repackaged the old one in 10 minutes before. So I did not write it from scratch, and I do not want to give people that advice. Do not write promotion applications from
The
scratch.
people that gave you that promotion didn't hopefully read that blog and go, what? He did. Do you actually, that's an interesting question. Obviously we know that people read Anna's blogs because the Guardian apparently read her blogs. Do people reach out and contact you and reflect on what you've said? Jodie, but you're not...
Yeah, my friend's mum in the States saw my blog post about how to have your first Christmas with someone in your family having a diagnosis of dementia. Apparently it made its way around all her pals in the States, so I think that one went quite far on Facebook and things.
That's nice. Anybody else?
I think I've become Talk TV's go-to person to call now because of mine.
And I'm not sure if that's a good thing.
Usually they call me when I'm on my way to somewhere on holiday as well. So like now whenever I go on holiday, I pack a blazer and my laptop just in case because they always seem to call when I'm on my way to the lakes or something like that.
You know what those runners are like? As soon as you get on their list of somebody that will make yourself available to talk on any kind of topic, that's it. Anything that comes up there, you become their go-to person. But that's good. Shows you that general all-round knowledge. In fact, we might even, if you're watching the video version of this, I'm going to find a little montage and cut that in. Right now, we'll see Sam doing his best serious.
Usually from a different cottage every time as well.
And will you go for it no matter what it is, even if it's something you know nothing about?
Yeah, you've always got a couple of hours to read about it, so why not?
Always give an opinion. It'll be fine.
It's usually about any new drugs, so I can sort of handle that.
And we know that not everything we read in the news or see on television is right? Well, that's all of our brilliant guests. For those that don't know me, I'm Adam Smith. I'm the Programme Director for Dementia Researcher, and it's my job to try and provide blogs and resources and things that hopefully help inspire young people to think about dementia research as a career option, and to also provide resources and stories and tools and disseminate things that hopefully help keep you in dementia research once you're there. So I spend a lot of time on social media and at events and talking to people and just trying to keep on top of everything that's going on and working out what would be useful, because we know increasingly people are stepping away from some social media. So our newsletter and website and things like that become more important than ever to keep everybody up to date. And so that's the kind of stuff I do. But let's just take a break there, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the last year. we're back. I hope you enjoyed that musical interval, and now we're going to go around in reverse order and talk about people's highlights from the year, which means this time we're going to start with Connor. Connor, other than taking up rugby, which I know you've done for the last 12 months, for those that don't know, that there are quite a few pictures on his social media of him looking rather dashing in a rugby shirt and a little bit muddy. What else have you done this year, Connor?
Less unorthodox things than that, but yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I got promoted this year, which was very nice. So I've got senior in front of my job title, which feels very scary and undeserved.
Not at all. Do people
I don't feel knowledge enough to be senior. But yeah, mostly what I've done is kind of develop stuff alongside the DEMCOM fellowship. So this year we started developing special interest groups within DEMCOM, which is a fellowship which was awarded to about more than 50 people in the NIHR applied research collaborations. We do kind of any discipline that falls within applied dementia research. So I've been working alongside two groups in there focused on prevention and another focused on data science. So that's been really interesting. And I think the big thing this year in my field has been the 2024 Lancet Commission.
Wait, I didn't ask you about that yet. Don't jump ahead. You'll ruin all my questions. I've got a plan.
I'm sorry.
So, I mean, obviously, I hate to put people on the spot because the answer might be no. But have you had grants this year? Have you done some publishing stuff? Have you made some new discoveries? Something that surprised you? I bet you got your hands on some new data, didn't you?
Oh, I did, yeah, actually. Yeah, so I got my hands on CPRD data this year. So it's like I always forget the acronym, but it's Clinical Practice Research Data Link, which is a ginormous data source of NHS records. So I haven't actually published much this year. I think I've only had one publication this year, but the learning curve of getting to use like real big data, millions of people, has been huge, but very, very fun.
That's like when you walk into the candy shop then and you just can't decide what you're going to buy because you've suddenly got so much to go at. Is that kind of how it is?
A little bit, but it's like all my training's been in like as a kind of statistician using pre-designed cohort studies. So everything's lovely and neat and tidy, and people start the study at the same time and they end the study at the same time and they're followed up at the same time. Obviously in real life with health records, people are being born and coming into that practice and leaving that practice and starting treatment and ending treatment and getting lost in between, and interesting accidents such as people being diagnosed with dementia at age 6, which you have to sort of clean, and people who end up being like 240 years old because they haven't been like registered as dead. It's a fun, messy playground.
And you're sure you haven't just secretly found the have you seen What They Do in the Shadows? You haven't secretly found that Laszlo's living?
Unfortunately not. It would be much more interesting if I did.
But I get what you mean, because working with these large data sets, I mean, as you just said, real life is messy. GPs and health professionals are busy, and there are system changes all the time, and it requires, for that data to come out good, it's got to be... God, that was really bad use of English then, wasn't it? It's got to go in good to come out good. But I take your point. And so you have to work out what's going wrong with all that before you can make use of it.
Oh yeah, I think it took us like months and months and months and months to be able to do the most basic stuff. So there was a lot of like me getting frustrated and going to make coffees, going like, why can't I figure out a percentage of this data? But yeah, it was awful for the first few months, but really fun once you kind of got the hang of it.
Well, we'll learn more about that when we come to talking about next year and your highlights for your big thing. Let me drop in. Let's bring this back to being a little bit festive, shall we? And I'm going to ask you. So, if you could give one piece of research equipment or a piece of funding as a gift to your lab, like a Christmas gift, you could give a Christmas gift to your lab. What are you gonna give them? What's it gonna be and why?
I would actually. It's quite easy because one of the things we're using these big studies like CPRD and Biobank is you suddenly learn how expensive they are. So I think a personal license to use it for one study is like over 20, like sort of 25 grand or something. I think we have like a site license for a year for like £100,000.
Wow.
So if I could give like in perpetuity license to CPRD to our research group, that
Don't you think it's kind of mad that an NIHR, which is part of the UK NHS ecosystem funding scheme, has to then pay another part of the health service money to use data which we should have? Come on, somebody who's watching should fix that. We shouldn't even need to pay for this. This should be available for the greater good.
and you've got to pay for like bolt-ons, like a phone contract. If you
need extra data.
Yes, literally. So like if you get your primary care records, but if you also want to know, like, I don't know, some other answer or some other kind of hospital
like
admission
medications history or something like that.
You have to like pay extra bolt-ons like for that data. It's so frustrating.
A bit like Ancestry. I started doing some at Ancestry.com this year, and it's great. You can get a subscription. You think, right, I've paid, I should get access now. And they say, yeah, but if you want pictures of birth certificates, and if you'd like to access war records, that's another £3 a year. I thought you were going to say faster computers, because working with all that data, I know, but maybe you've already got super speedy computers.
I mean, I've probably got the fastest computer in my lab, so we'll just keep it that way.
Cleona, you can tell us first. What would you give your lab for Christmas? What would they really like? Let's answer that question first.
Well, interestingly, this year we were planning to do a Secret Santa, and instead, when it was Black Friday, we bought a lab Hotel Chocolat Velvetizer, and basically have been having hot chocolates every day, which I would recommend as a lab investment. In terms of an uplift, that was a great gift for the lab.
So that's Secret Santa alternate. All the tenors that you would have spent, you all chucked in on a velvetizer. What is a velvet? I think I might need one of these. What's the velvetizer?
So it's basically like a very small little hot chocolate maker. You just put in milk and chocolate, and it froths and whisks it all up and melts like chocolate chips into the hot chocolate. And it's really delicious and a great way to spend like at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock of the afternoon with the lab.
Actual chocolate, so not like powder or anything. You put chocolate.
You can go powder, but we've been having a bougie month and we've gone with like the original Hotel Chocolat chocolate chips.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've got a picture in my head now of some like 300 quid machine in the corner of the lab that nobody's allowed to touch.
It was only like 60, 70 quid on Black Friday, but definitely a good investment for morale at this time of year.
Has anybody else got a velvetizer?
I've got one on the bench.
If you wouldn't mind, while we're talking to Cleona, going and whipping one up for us and coming back.
Cleona,
what's been going on this year?
I'm just looking at Connor coming back.
So it's like a jug.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, if you've got an espresso machine, you can use the milk frother on the espresso machine to do it as well.
Feel very like Price is Right now, like.
So for any PIs listening, this is the way to keep morale high.
I think so. How to keep everybody still staying in your lab is by a velvetizer. And we'll put a link to one on there. And if anybody would like to gift a velvetizer to Jodie, Sam, Anna, or myself, and we'll happily accept one of those.
I'll happily have another one.
Cleona wouldn't be. Maybe Cleona just needs a supply of really good chocolate to go in there.
Yeah, or I just need to get a referral code because I keep telling everyone about it. So Hotel Chocolat should really be paying me for the promotion I'm doing here.
We'll put that in with the show notes if you like. Send us your referral code and we'll put that in with it. So Cleona, tell us about your year.
So my year has been, kind of a year of change. So I started the year by submitting my PhD thesis and finished my PhD and did my Viva in the spring and transitioned to a postdoc role in the same lab with some new supervisors and kind of on a new project. So it was, definitely a nice transition throughout the year to kind of go from student to doctor and have a bit more responsibility. And I really have enjoyed kind of starting to explore a new project as well. And one of the highlights of my year is that I got to go to the US to do a research trip to Southern California, which was both academically and personally very fun because it was in the very sunny weather as it started to get very cold in London. So yeah, that was really great.
Congratulations, first of all, of course, on getting that. How did you celebrate? Did you go big? And do your family know what you do? Because I've been we did a podcast on Fivers a couple of weeks ago, and everybody came back and said their parents are convinced or grandparents are convinced that they're brain surgeons, or they do something like they're a doctor with brains. But I guess you really are a doctor with brains, right?
Yeah, it's true. When I work with kind of postmortem brains, you always get people being like, oh my god, so you just have like a full brain that you have. But I think actually doing the blogs has been a great way to kind of convey a bit more what I actually do, and give people an idea. For the Viva, my family came online and watched me do my like final seminar before I went into the Viva, which is really nice. And I don't think they understood most of it, but it was, I think, nice for them to see kind of how it all came together. Yeah, I think I definitely get the odd question of like, oh, if you're a neurosurgeon, can you do this? And you have to steer people back along the right path. Yeah, no, and then I had a big conference in June, a few months after my Viva, so it was in Rome. So I took a holiday after that as a way of celebrating the PhD, which was very nice.
It's nice. When we publish your blogs, of course, nobody ever comments. I mean, comments are open, but very few people ever comment on them, except for parents and grandparents. They're the most commented. So whenever we post, we'll get these like pop-ups on LinkedIn or on our website going, we're so proud of you. You're so well done. Keep up the good work. And it's nearly always family members who comment. Which, of course, is a comment to anybody out there. You're always welcome to post a comment against any of our blogs. And we love it when you do that. Whether it's helpful, unhelpful, or well, you've got a question, we can always get you answers to those. But also as well, grandparents are always welcome to drop in and have a look. But that's really nice. And Rome as well. I was at a motor neuron disease conference, ALS conference, a couple of weeks ago. Some PhD students' mum was there. When I was kind of, when you don't know, you're chatting to somebody at their poster and there's somebody trying to take their poster and says, oh, sorry, this person wants to take your picture with your poster. And they went, oh, don't worry, it's just my mum. Okay. Hello, nice to meet you. You must be so proud of your daughter. Oh, yes, I am. I ended up having this whole conversation with the mum about that poster. So you didn't take your mum to the conference with you?
No, not this time. Maybe I'll offer that as an option next time. But yeah, I'm curious. Was that mum like a scientist or just joined at the conference?
No, just somebody was interested. Oh, I mean, I guess maybe they also wanted to they tied it up with a holiday and then somehow managed to sneak in. I don't know. I mean, nobody was really checking badges so much at this conference, I have to say. But at the same time, they had Comic-Con. And that in the same venue was their Comic-Con, and that was mad. It was awesome. And the Comic-Con was open to anybody to walk in. So we're all kind of wandering around Comic-Con in our lunch hours. All these people in costumes. And we just came as the squares from the conference. It's brilliant. Thank you, Clara. Congratulations on a brilliant year. And your blogs have been great as well. I think anybody who is doing a PhD right now, do check out Cleona's blogs because they've been really helpful, I think, in that talking about that transition period and what the kind of you're going through. And I think your blog, particularly on whether you should stay in the same lab or whether you should go somewhere else, was particularly pertinent because that's a question that often comes up. Anna, let's come to you now. Anna retired from blogging this year.
I did.
She's what do you call it when professors retire? What's that?
Emeritus.
She's an emeritus blogger for us, but still sometime podcast host.
Yeah. I feel I kind of miss it though. I really regret. Well, I miss it because I really enjoyed.
Money.
Well, no, but the money's always good. More champagne. What can I say? No, the money, but it's also the kind. I think it's what Cleona was just saying about having that moment of that time to be reflexive and try and explain your research. I think it's actually really valuable to I get other moments like that, but I really enjoy that moment, the writing moment of trying to put it into plain English. I think it's really valuable. And to share the pains and the bumps and the humps.
And you don't really have a platform for that otherwise, do you? I know I kind of, in our community, of course, community.dementiaresearcher.nihr.ac.uk if you haven't got our app already. I started writing because I realised I didn't have enough interest to go to all the trouble to start my own blog. But I also wanted to kind of share a little bit about what I thought about certain things and didn't really have a platform for doing it. I do write blogs occasionally for the website, but usually where I can see a gap. Or when I ask our bloggers, will somebody write about this? And everybody goes, no. I don't know anything about that. So then I'll usually jump in. But yeah, so I can understand where you're coming from. But so with that aside, what's your year been like? What have you been up to?
Well, I was going to use the word busy, but everybody is busy. I think that's a terrible word to use, right? What have I been up to? I've been doing lots of things. I was thinking about a couple of important things that happened this year. And perhaps one of them is that I published a really big paper that I've been trying to publish for ages. And I was, thank you, with 67 co-authors. I know, and it's a core outcome set for intervention research in primary progressive aphasia, so the language-led dementia. And I presented the study at the International Conference on Frontotemporal Dementia, and I got a platform presentation with the bigwigs, the profs who talk about actual dementia trials in FTD. And then I kind of stood up after they had 2 dementia trialists, and then me talking about core outcome sets in speech therapy, and then another dementia doctor. And then we had a panel and we all had to talk about how speech outcome measures and trial models. And it felt very scary, but it felt really important because it felt like somebody came up to me in the audience afterwards, somebody with lived experience, and they said, oh, I'm really glad that you talked about what it feels like, because I was talking about outcomes like around quality of life and communication and relationships, and they said it was really good not to just be talking about a cure that felt really far away, but also to be talking about something that felt closer and real. So that was very cool, very exciting.
It is. Well, I mean, and 67 co-authors.
It was. So I felt like I was organising a bunch of rowdy friends. It was quite a lot of work. It's just kind of, in many ways, it's not an academic skill. It's just a kind of, or maybe like a parenting skill. It felt like I was trying to get my 11-year-old and all his friends to actually do something at the same time together in central London. It felt a bit chaotic, but we got it done.
And it depends how, I mean, you don't have to name names, of course, I wouldn't expect you to do that. But in any paper like that, I imagine, well, on a paper with 67 people, there must be at least 5 people who you would think, I'm never inviting you. Because those people who insist on commenting every single time on the most pedantic of things. And then when you look back, they even are contradicting themselves from version 1 to version 21 that you're now on, that they've gone back to saying what you said in the first version.
And you have to be really nice to them the whole way through. And then they work with you again. But actually, there was nobody like...
Really? If we're on this paper and you're listening right now, don't be that person. I hope you weren't that person.
No one. I don't know what you're talking about, Adam. Totally. Bye.
Brilliant. So you need to send us a link. Where can we find this paper for people who want?
It's in Alzheimer's and Dementia. So earlier this year. So it was in. I can send you the link. Absolutely. I'm very proud of it. I'll send you the link so you can.
And tell us the name. Just was it a big long title? What was it?
It was not too big. It's COS PPA, Core Outcome Set for Primary Progressive Aphasia. COS PPA. It feels quite catchy, I think.
It does. And not because it almost sounds like cosplay. PPA.
No.
No. You weren't going for that.
Not really. That's the second time. I also did a conference.
Not the other person to say that.
I went to a conference. We ran an intensive conversation group, and we called it a conversation camp. And I did a talk about our conversation camp. And after the talk, someone came up to me and was like, that sounds an awful lot like a concentration camp.
I thought that you were going to say conversion camp, which is also not. I think both bad.
They're all horrific.
It wasn't a camp conversation either.
So we're back to the drawing board on that one.
Yeah. Maybe not conversation camp. Conversation corner.
Well, because it's tricky. Corner sounds a bit like we're not really doing much. We want to sound like, but it's therapy, isn't it? So at this point, we're saying intensive group for conversation therapy. So we've gone really boring and tedious just to make it.
If anybody has a snappier title, answers on a postcard, send those to Anna.Volkmer@UCL.
Oh, hold on. Volkmer.UCL. Okay, please. I really genuinely need that advice.
But you are always one of the busiest people I know. Whenever I speak to speech and language therapy, we've got a funny little, not a funny, because there's nothing funny. We've got a little following among speech and language therapists on our website and on our social media and on our podcast. But I mean, entirely down to you. And everybody's always heard of you. That's the thing. Everybody's like, Anna does that. You've got fingers in. Is there a paper being published that hasn't had your name on it in the last somewhere?
Well, bearing in mind that there's about 12 speech therapists in the whole of the UK. I mean, not 12, I'm exaggerating. We're a tiny community. It's like living in a very small village if you're a speech therapist. So it's not a genuine.
I think you're being way too modest there. Thank you, Anna. Cool. If I keep this going, we're going to be here in an hour and a half's time. So I promise I will, after this round, next round will be sped up. But I'm going to throw in another Christmas question, which we'll come to. The most memorable gift you ever received as a child. Sam, what was the most memorable Christmas gift you ever got as a child?
Electric drum kit.
An electric drum kit?
Yeah. So
was that plugged into like the PlayStation? Or
no, like a full drum kit, but it was all just made out of like rubber pads and that kind of stuff. I always wanted to play drums, and I was always told it was too loud. So to be able to get one of those.
No, you also works with that. Have you still got it?
No, I got rid of it about a year ago because I'm going to get a new one probably when we do move somewhere else. But yeah, it was getting old and starting to stop working, and some of the pads weren't working, so it was time to get rid.
I love that you were still using any of that. What about you, Anna? Did you have a most memorable ever gift?
I will take my sister. My sister's one. She got a Barbie horse when we were like 6 years old, and it's remained the stuff of legends because she asked for it and then she didn't want it. And then it's become one of that, when you go, oh, but you remember the Barbie horse that you didn't really want. So make sure you ask for a present you really want. So it's like a metaphor in our family.
And is she still reminded of it every Christmas?
She is a 42.
Sorry, I didn't get you a Barbie horse.
She is a 42-year-old judge, an actual judge, like a real judgy one. So yes, we remind her of it all the time to bring her down a peg or two. Very helpful.
Are you, Jodie?
Good question. I've had I come from a family full of chaotic gifts. So yeah, many, all weird. For my 18th birthday, my mum and dad got me a high-vis jacket, just to give you some idea of what we're dealing with. So in terms of more sort of normal, shall we say? Although I adore that approach, but probably also in the musical instrument realm. When I was about 5, I got a piano. Am I good at music? Maybe one day.
A few musical ones. Mine was, I remember getting a record player that had flashing lights in the corner of the speakers that would flash in time with the music. That was one of my, I think there's a picture of me somewhere in like a Hong Kong Phooey dressing gown on a living room floor somewhere, looking like I'm doing DJ with some flashing lights behind me. I don't know how old I would have been. I don't know, maybe
27?
8. Yeah. I don't quite like that now. Anybody else? Connor, Cleo, anything that jumps to mind?
I remember when I was obsessed with this, like, it was like this sort of like, I mean, to me, it seemed I want to say life size, but it wasn't life size because I was like 7. But it was like this robot thing, and I was like obsessed with it in the shop. And then one year it was just like in my house at Christmas, and I was just like, my God! And I thought it was I think I thought it was like a real life robot, but it was just like something you remote control to move around the house. And I think I was expecting it to be like C3PO or something. And in a month or two, I was really disappointed with it because I was like, this is not like a robot companion that like I will go on adventures with.
But I love that some of the devices we have around at home would have been amazing back then. Like, I'm not going to say her name because she'll talk to me. But the little device that sits in the corner, who you mention their name, and then they can do things like turn lights on and start the vacuum cleaner or send text message. That would have been, how mad would that have been when you were Christmas, when you were 10, if you could have gotten that? That would have been the nearest thing to a robot. It'd be like having Hal in your house. It was something that can talk to you. Cleona, I need to let you answer because everybody else has.
When I was probably, around 7 or 8, I was obsessed with getting a dog, but that was never actually on the cards for my family. And so one year I got this ginormous stuffed dog that was probably the size of me at the time. And it was kind of a flat one that you could lie on top of. And I remember thinking it was like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure it has since been graduated. My sister is a primary school teacher and it got graduated to her classroom. So I would never want to touch that again. But at the time, it was like the best thing ever. And I used to like lie on it and watch TV all the time.
Awesome. Big soft toys. And of course, it's all Jellycats now, isn't it? Has anybody bought a Jellycat either for themselves or somebody else this Christmas?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what Jellycat is.
You don't know what Jellycats are?
No.
Do they have those in Scotland? You must know.
I don't think it's a Scotland problem. I think it's that I'm a grown adult that doesn't have children.
Oh, Jellycats! Have you not got?
Maybe why?
They're the softest of plush toys, but they also come in shapes. You can get like vegetables, which are Jellycats, or
are they all? I was going to say, are they all cats? But you just told me there's vegetables.
No. Jellycat's the make, isn't it? Am I saying it wrong? They are Jellycats.
Right. Yeah.
Are Jellycats different to Squishmallows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're different. They're different.
My niece is obsessed with Squishmallows, that's all I know.
Well, Jodie, I know what I'm going to send you for Christmas now. Let's come on to hear about your year. Thank you for being so patient as well.
All good. Yeah, my year, academic or personal, because I think my personal year has overshone that. I got married to my best friend, so living the dream, but also...
Are they still your best friend?
Yes, I adore the human being that I married. Definitely recommend doing that. If you're going to marry someone, like them. It's a good start, I feel. But yeah, I spent the first half of the year planning a lot of that, and I know that this is obviously a academic context focused thing, but as per my blogs, I do think it's important to remember work-life balance, and that's something that I've been highly prioritizing this year, not just because I was getting married, but because burnout is very real, and that was what I was not looking for this year. Academically, I have also identified a hopefully exciting drug for potential repurposing, which would be really cool. It's very early days, but I did a study in Biobank, a drug-wide association study, so essentially used every person in Biobank to try and identify a drug, identified one, and then we gave it to Cardiff, and Cardiff took it to the SAIL data bank, so they did it in about 1.3 million people and found the same drug. So I'm not going to spoil what the drug is because the paper's coming out and everyone can read it. But yeah, well, I'm not going to give away my secret.
Could you what does it sound like?
It sounds
I'm
like
kidding.
a drug.
I'm kidding. You don't really have to.
I mean, it's a drug that's in use already, so that narrows it down. Not at all.
Yeah, there's only a few to choose, but that's exciting, super exciting. And is that where now you want these adaptive clinical trials, which I know they've been using in motor neuron disease. I've coming from that M&D conference I've been at. They were all about adaptive, rapid trial turnaround, and short testing, move on for repurposed drugs for ALS and M&D. Is that the kind of place where you'd want that to go next?
I think it's the ideal approach, right? Not to be skeptical of the preclinical context. I've worked there before. I understand the nuance and the gain that you get from that sort of context. However, development of drugs takes a lot of time. You know that I did a blog post this year about the inequity of drug development. The drugs that we are seeing coming to market that are new are very exciting, but they're not necessarily the most equitable. For example, unless it's changed, I haven't been super up to date with the news recently for lots of overwhelming reasons. But unless it's changed, the NHS didn't approve it, right? So we're looking down the barrel of a situation where people might not get these drugs that are being lauded as being fantastic, but what we do have is a knowledge base of drugs that might be worthwhile reconsidering. And if we do that, then we get to skip a bit of the clinical trial development pipeline. We understand how they work. We're not stuck in this, like, we have to take them through stage 3 and we have to try them on the different population, i.e. if they've not been used in dementia before, we need to try them in a dementia population. But we're talking about drugs that are understood clinically. So we know things like a lot of these drugs were originally tested in white men, but because they've had clinical use, we have anecdotal and sort of circumstantial evidence from being used in the NHS about how they work in other populations. So they actually are really equitable, and it's a really good way to be like, okay, our dementia research is quite, for example, quite white, but we understand how it works in non-white populations, and we actually have a good evidence base, so we can understand how the drug works in these groups and further
Absolutely.
work in those groups, which is
And
something that we're missing significantly.
Well, we've talked about that trial design a couple of times this year. I think we did a podcast with Siddharth and Chandran, and back M&D week again, back at the start of the year, talking about the M&D Smart trial that does exactly that. They have these kind of big eye and machine learning data sets that are churning out what they think might be potential, providing a short list of potential drugs, but then because they're already approved as being safe, they can then more rapidly test these in slightly smaller populations for shorter periods of time to measure impact, but then quickly stop and restart and move on whether they're showing any effect. It seems to be the way. That's for repurposing trials now. That's what everybody's trying to do, isn't it?
I mean, I think you need to come at it from multiple directions, right? I think that's the most effective way to try and get towards something that is an effective treatment, or ideally a cure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jodie. Okay, we've got one more person to get to, which is Sam, to hear about Sam's year in the past, but we've reached the time in the show where we have to say goodbye to Anna, because Anna has a prior engagement, and I've talked for far too long, and Anna has to go. So all join us in saying goodbye to Anna. Anna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so sorry to leave. It's like happy Christmas, everybody.
Thank you, Anna.
Bye,
See
Anna.
you.
Bye.
So, Sam, your year, I realised I missed you before. Sam, your year, what's been happening this year?
It's sort of been one of those years where everything comes together at once. So it's been quite a good year. So we've had a couple of grants, a couple of papers, and a couple of conferences. So it's been really productive, and we've managed to secure funding to form a spin-out company for my research as well. So it's been one of those years where multiple sort of angles and projects have all come together at once, and it's allowed us to apply for a couple of things, and that's gone through really well. And so we're now in a really strong position. So we've secured some funding to basically go to the next stage of regulation for a regenerative therapy for maxillofacial healing. So we're now getting that ready to go to the FDA. And then the second grant was from the Innovate UK to start our spin-out company. So it's been a good year, which is kind of makes next year, how do we top it with next year? Because it's been a really successful year for us. So yeah, kind of tricky to work out.
I loved your story. So for anybody who's not seen Sam's podcast there, he threw me a real curveball this year, because we had Sam on the community doing a chat about innovation, and I knew Sam works in 3D bioprinting and with stem cells and lattice structures to attach stem cells to create 3D models of organoids and things, all kinds of clever brain stuff. And I get him on to talk about his spin-out company, expecting we're going to hear all about this. And he tells me how they're making a heat-proof material for Formula One cars.
Yeah.
Like, what? Where did that come from? And there's a whole story. If you don't understand why we go from that to that, go and watch that webinar. It's on our YouTube channel. But just to show that you're never quite sure where your research is going to take you, in which direction, that Sam is now a manufacturer of heat-proof products.
Yeah, it's that's the thing about material science. You never know where a particular material is going to take you. So that's the exciting thing about it. I've been to a materials conference, and I've seen some really strange things with like people doing weird things with one material, and then another talk of someone doing something equally weird with the same material but completely different. So that's materials are weird, is what I've learned this year.
Awesome. And you can do that, of course, with your data, Connor. Of course, your skills, and Jodie, you can take your skills, you could suddenly apply to any other data, and suddenly. We had somebody else on a webinar this year who talked about they worked doing similar things to you, and then went to work for an insurance company. Hated it and came back again. but did take those data analytics skills and apply them differently. Cleona, I'm not sure how do you reapply your? it wasn't leaving you out. I just didn't immediately come up with an example.
If I come up with an example, I'll let you know. Currently a lab-based scientist and stuck there for now, but
there are other ways. Right, we're going to do this in a quick fire terms because I'm conscious of time and everybody's evenings and all of our listeners as much as you want to live in this. So we'll take a little break now, and when we come back, we're going to hear about our researchers' fields. Okay, welcome back to our festive podcast, and we're going to start with Jodie this time, who's going to tell us, Jodie, what is the hot topic in your field of research this year? What's been the big news?
Well, I mean, I guess now I work in drug development, right? So I think it has been all the sort of hot topic drugs and possible future drugs that you've seen a
So
lot
all
of.
the anti-amyloids.
Yep, exactly. Now that's not what I do specifically, as discussed, but I think is very exciting, and I think warrants the hype that's happening just now. So yeah.
Yes, big news of drugs this year. The anti-amyloid therapies have been all in the news everywhere. Of course, good news and bad news in some cases where they've been approved by regulators but not approved as being cost effective, and then that was changed in Europe again recently. And of course, if you're in the US, you can get it too, and you can have it here now if you're going to pay for it. But a lot of debate around those medications, and I gather there's more on the horizon as well for 2025. So watch that space. Thanks, Jodie. Sam.
Yeah, two, and I'll be very quick with both. So the first is at the conference I went to the other week in Boston, I got to see a guy called Roger Cam talk, who I followed his work for years because he does makes blood-brain barrier models, and he's now got this system where you can basically screen drugs in vitro without having to use animals, and I think that's going to be a big thing for dementia researchers to be able to translate to human better inside the lab. So that was a big one. And the other one is a guest I'd like to get onto our Food for Thought podcast, a guy called Dr. Dean Ornish, who proved that heart disease was a result of diet and could be reversed with diet. And if you remember when we had Michael Greger on a few years ago, this study had just started to see if you could influence Alzheimer's disease with diet after diagnosis. And the results were far better than anyone predicted. And actually, it seems like even after somebody's diagnosed, diet can still have an impact. So I'd like to get them on and speak to them about that on the podcast.
Yeah, do that. We definitely want to hear from them. So what's this? Sorry, you mentioned a model that can allow you to...
It's like on a chip, on a microfluidic chip. And so you can basically compartmentalize different parts of the brain and create functional blood-brain vasculature and look at how drugs cross that to look at infiltration into the brain. It's really, really cool stuff.
That is awesome. That sounds like the thing to get into.
Yeah,
Leona?
definitely.
Is that a new area?
yeah, I think both what Jodie and Sam have said is also was going to be part of mine, and that the new kind of drugs are definitely bringing more excitement to the field. And I think in the next coming years, there's going to be like safer mechanisms for delivery of those drugs, as well as newer and better drugs hopefully coming around. And what kind of something different that's like relevant to more of my work is that there was a really interesting study. For a long time, kind of the Alzheimer's disease field has known that ApoE4 is a genetic risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. And then some new really big kind of population studies this year showed that it's kind of more of a risk factor than anyone knew before, and could be considered its own genetic type of Alzheimer's disease. And I think linking that to then underlying biology and why that is the case, I think that will be really interesting going forward. So yeah, some new interesting genetic studies.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm guessing in Downs as well, does that bring us closer to understanding why people with Downs are disproportionately affected in the way that they are?
I think we kind of know that already in terms of like their 3 copies of APP, and that's why it's linked to trisomy 21. But I think understanding like broader genetic risk in the general population is definitely going to apply to people with Down syndrome, and maybe understanding within the Down syndrome population the age at onset and things like that. We still don't really know why that's so variable. So yeah, I think that's all really important.
I never thought, I mean, I've suddenly got lots of questions which I know we're limited on time, so I can't answer these. There's a couple of questions that immediately come to mind. So we talked at the conference I've just been at, and Connor and Jodie have both mentioned tonight about the biobank, for example. How well represented are people living with Down syndrome in the biobank?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not necessarily sure in the biobank study directly, but Connor mentioned the GP database earlier that you accessed this year. And I just was at a talk that researchers in the Down syndrome field accessed that, and they were able to get a really representative population of people with Down syndrome. And I think there's the same issues whereby historically different codes for different disorders are not registered the same. But I think, yeah, as those databases grow, I think there'll be a good representation of
Getting better
smaller
hands on that.
populations that you can study. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my other one was about about the drugs that we've been talking about, the anti-amyloid therapies, whether there's any exploration of those in particular subsets of people with different populations.
So there has been in familial AD and kind of those subsets of Alzheimer's disease, but no trials have taken place in Down syndrome yet for a variety of reasons that I think are not necessarily great reasons not to do it. I think the companies are a little bit, worried maybe about doing it in a population with intellectual disability, or, people with Down syndrome are known to have very high cerebral amyloid angiopathy, which is hypothesized to be linked to some of the side effects of these drugs. So I think there's a worry there as well. So there's definitely in the Down syndrome research community, people are advocating for trials to take place. And I know of trials going on for other drugs, but not necessarily the anti-amyloid therapies. So hopefully in the near future, they can be included, because obviously this is a group of people who are disproportionately affected by Alzheimer's disease, but have been left out of a lot of these studies in the past. So it'd be really nice to see some of that rectified in the future.
Absolutely. Jodie, you know that new drug you found? Well, the old drug that you found that might be useful. There's a population of people there that might like to try that.
Yeah. I'm doing
Let's have a Christmas question. Here we go. If you could only listen to one Christmas song for the rest of your life, that's it, just the one, which is it going to be, Cleona?
I think it has to be All I Want for Christmas Is You, because I think that can lift you up when you're, on the lead up to Christmas. I think that's always a good one. Gets you in the mood. You can do karaoke, you can do whatever you like.
If we can find a free version of that, we'll put that into the tune. Connor, your answer to that question, please.
For the Christmas question, Wham! Last Christmas.
Last Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just been, I saw there's been like a ton of stuff on TV yesterday, wasn't there, for George Michael? Is it the 40th anniversary of that song?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know facts.
I think it's the 40. Is it? Somebody else tell me. Is that right? I think it's the anniversary of that song, I believe. And there was a whole bunch of stuff on BBC Radio about the making of it and how it came about. And apparently the party that there was the video of that was a real party as well. And he played all the instruments and everything. Anyway, good choice, Jodie.
It's got to be either Slade or Christmas Time Don't Let the Bells End by The Darkness, because my preferred Christmas aesthetic is one of sort of glam rock and cat suits.
We'll expect to see the outfit next year. your glam rock.
Sure. You've given me a year to work it out, so why not?
That's it. We'll hold you to that. I'm going to remember that for next year's festive podcast. Sam?
Yeah, this probably has to be my last contribution as well, because sadly I have to leave shortly as well. I think Jodie's choices were both great ones, but I think I'd go, it's a bit older, Bing Crosby and David Bowie, Peace on Earth, Little Drummer Boy. I really like that song.
Yeah. Anything with David Bowie in is awesome.
Yeah, it's just a really weird mashup that nobody expected, but it just sort of works.
Absolutely. Right, we're going to get on and get this finished. Give me one thing you're most looking forward to in 2025. Sam, you can go first.
Just seeing how the company goes. It's a really exciting journey, and I'm just really interested to see what happens.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how scared are you versus how excited are you? Because it must be scary starting out on a business.
A lot less scared now, because we're getting good conversation with investors, so it's looking like we're not going to run out of money next year. So that's a big bonus. But yeah, I'm more excited than I am scared, because the worst case scenario is you learn something from it. So what's the worst that can happen?
Brilliant. Well, congratulations on getting that going, Sam. If anybody wants to know more, Sam will be writing for us this year. We'll expect updates from you, Sam. And all the best for this exciting new business. And let's go to Connor.
Oh, next year, sort of a scary one, but so next year is the last year of my fellowship that I'm on at the minute, and I'm applying for kind of a bigger grown-up fellowship next year. So That's kind of terrifying, but also kind of exciting because I've got a bit more of like my own research now that I want to like do more independently. Yeah, big year of applying to fellowships and see how that goes. But yeah, exciting.
Ooh, you'll hear it here first. Nobody else will know this, but the Race Against Dementia, of course, one of our amazing funders, their fellowships will be opening at the end of January, early February, for their next round of fellowships. So you heard it here first. We're going to do a webinar in late January, I think. That'll be via the Alzheimer's Research UK stream. But yes, Race Against Dementia fellowships will be opening. That could be one to consider applying for, Connor. 5 years funding. They've just changed it as well, so you don't have to be within 12 months of finishing your PhD anymore. I think you have to be within 5 years.
Oh, I could just squeeze in there.
And basically, an incredible funder as well. You get to meet Sir Jackie, and you get to go on the training camps and change wheels. And they've all been incredibly successful, the Race Against Dementia Fellows. I love that program. So do check that out. We'll be doing a live stream last week of January. Jodie?
Yes.
Come on. What are you most excited for? What are you looking? What's gonna big news for 2025?
Your guess is as good as mine. So I currently, my contract ends at the end of February, and I'm not fully sure what I'm doing yet. So I am on the market if anyone has got this far into the podcast and is looking to hire.
Does it have to be in Scotland?
Well, I'm not moving out of Glasgow, but I will work remotely. Sure. I'll come down to somewhere in England once a month. Sure. But my love and my life is in Glasgow, so I'm not moving. But it's exciting because I don't know what will happen, but it's also terrifying because I don't know what will happen. So we'll see. But I'll blog about it, right? And
well, you will, but I do also hate that you have to go through this. I think this is a common topic that comes up. It's in our survey. It's kind of something about this, and let's not bang my drum for 2025 as being this thing. But my aim for 2025 is that we get better at dealing with the issue of short-term contracts.
I mean, I've got a grant that I'm waiting to hear back about, like a seed funding grant, which would be good, but we're still talking after autumn. Like, if that grant comes through, I should be okay till autumn, but after that I still don't know, so who knows what I'll be doing next Christmas. We'll see.
Well, so continue to read Jodie's box for updates. Cleona?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat to Jodie in that my contract ends in the middle of next year, so it's exciting but also daunting to know like where I'll be this time next year. But more of an exciting thing that I'm looking forward to is that hopefully, well, I'm going to say definitely in 2025 I'm going to publish a few papers for my PhD that, you know, I thought would come out this year, and they've slowly ticked into next year. But yeah, really close to the finish line on some of them, and it'll be really nice because they'll be my first authored papers, so it'll be great to have those out.
That's incredible. Yeah, you'll, again, send us links. We always include those. I think for me, so, I mean, I didn't talk about my 2024. It's been a big year for, I mean, I don't know, this is my work, but dementia research. We did a bunch of new stuff this year. We kind of launched our community app, which has got about 750, nearly 800 members now. We launched the webinar series, the Salon, which I know some of you have been in or guest hosted, spoken at. So we did that this year, which has been exciting. And we've done some new kind of podcast bits and pieces. We turned on our solutions lab a few weeks ago, and it was really exciting to get the first 2 questions in for those and be able to supply answers that were useful, which I found particularly, I kind of really like it. I mean, we have lots of stats all the time for Dementia Researcher that say how many people listen to our podcast or how many people came to our website and things, which is great. And we always hope that they're more this year than last year. But actually, the little stories like, you know, hearing about somebody who reads your blog and then that changed or they did something together as a result, or somebody who found a funding call or a job that they wouldn't have had it not been through our website, or somebody who gets an answer to a question, I find particularly motivating. That's what keeps me going during this. So please do let us know if we've been helpful to you at some point in 2024, or if there's new things you'd like to see us to do in 2025. Do let us know. But for now, I think that's probably all we've got time for our festive podcast. I've got more questions, but I think we've answered our festive questions very pleased and delighted to have you all as our bloggers. And if anybody listening is interested in being a blogger for Dementia Researcher, do get in touch at dementiaresearcher.at ucl.ac.uk. I haven't even had any champagne. I can't get the email address right. But do get in touch with us and let us know. But for now, that's probably all we've got time for. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful festive season, however you're celebrating, and we'll be hearing from all of our bloggers more in 2025. Have a great holiday. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
everyone.
Merry Christmas.